study, and you don't account for sugar, sugary drink, Coca-Cola, bread, pasta, lasagna.
Yeah, that's what Harvard did recently. They didn't account for sugar intake when they said beef causes diabetes. I'm like, you got to be kidding me! You're not even counting sugar.
That's so crazy.
Right, but they get this published, and this is really bad science, And guys like John Anitis, who's one of the most cited scientists in the world, has basically said all this epidemiology we're doing, we're just wasting money. It's not telling us anything. This is all garbage.
These foods may look delicious until you find out they can kill you. Maybe you're watching this with a snack in your hand right now. Chips, nuts, some fruit on the table. Harmless, right? But somewhere in the world, someone is sitting down to a meal that, if prepared just a little bit wrong, can shut down their lungs, melt their liver, scramble their brain, or quietly poison them one bite at a time. A perfectly plated fish that contains enough toxin to paralyze you while you're still fully conscious. A national fruit that can trigger sudden brain fog, seizures, and collapse if you eat it at the wrong stage. A cheese crawling, literally, with live maggots that some people call disgusting, and others call a delicacy. Mushrooms that look exactly like something you'd happily toss into a pasta, except this version kills you days later by destroying your organs from the inside. And the strangest part, most of these aren't illegal street drugs or secret black market experiments. They're part of normal culture, family recipes, festival foods, comfort snacks. They're protected by tradition, loved by locals, and monitored nervously by doctors and health authorities. Over the next hour, we're going to travel across kitchens, forests, fishing villages, and fine dining rooms to uncover the world's most dangerous foods. The Japanese pufferfish that turns dinner into a calculated gamble. The tropical root that can become cyanide if you rush the preparation. The bright Jamaican fruit that can crash your blood sugar so fast your body simply can't keep up. The shellfish that quietly drinks in sewage and disease, then ends up raw on someone's plate. Everyday, safe foods like nuts, fruits, and homemade preserves that hide chemical traps and microbial landmines you almost never see. Some of these foods started as survival tricks, ways for humans to squeeze calories out of a hostile environment. Others evolved into symbols of status and courage, like culinary dares for the brave and the rich. And a few are just accidents waiting to happen, held back only by strict rules, local wisdom, and a bit of luck. You'll hear about toxins that don't care how good your chef is. Proteins that survive cooking, freezing, and boiling. Poisons that come not from the food itself, but from the water, soil, or animals around it. By the end, you might look at your plate differently, not with fear, but with a new respect for how thin the line really is between delicious and dangerous. Because this isn't just a video about weird foods that might kill someone somewhere. This is about how close all of us every day actually are to the edge, and how much trust we quietly place in farmers, workers, cooks, and centuries of trial and error every time we take a bite. This is the dark side of eating. These are the foods that can kill you, and why somehow humans keep eating them anyway. It looks harmless, even elegant. Thin slices arranged like a chrysanthemum, Japan's symbol of royalty and death, fanned across a porcelain plate, clear, glassy, almost glowing from within. If you didn't know what you were looking at, you'd think it was one of the safest dishes in the world. It isn't. This is fugu, the Japanese pufferfish, the most dangerous food humans eat on purpose. Inside its organs lies toxin, one of the most lethal natural poisons on Earth. Not a spice, not a contaminant, not something you can wash off. A neurotoxin 200 times more powerful than cyanide. To understand just how deadly that is, imagine this. A dose smaller than a grain of salt, less than what's stuck under your fingernail, can shut down a full-grown adult in minutes. And what makes it terrifying is that there is no antidote. None. If it hits your system, the only thing doctors can do is hope you survive long enough for your body to process it. They can't reverse it. They can't neutralize it. And the symptoms? Brutal. Your lips tingle, then your fingertips, then your face, then your legs begin to feel heavy, like concrete poured over your bones. Within an hour, your muscles stop listening to your brain. Your lungs weaken. Your voice disappears. You're still awake, still conscious. You can hear everything. You can think clearly, but you can't move. You can't speak. You can't breathe. Victims describe it as being awake inside your own coffin. This is the risk chefs face every day when preparing fugu, because handling fugu is not just cooking, it's a high-stakes surgery. Japan requires years of training before a chef is allowed to cut even a single pufferfish for customers. To pass the exam, chefs must identify each toxic organ by memory, remove the liver, ovaries, and skin with absolute precision, ensure zero leakage of toxin into the meat, then prepare the fish perfectly with no contamination on knives, gloves, or cutting boards. The failure rate is high, not because the students are unskilled, but because even a microscopic mistake could mean death. And even certified chefs still have accidents. Japan's Ministry of Health publishes reports every year. Some restaurants slip, some home cooks cut corners, some people simply misidentify the fish. But here's the twist. Fugu doesn't taste extraordinary. It's mild, almost subtle. People don't eat it for the flavor. They eat it for the thrill, the psychological rush of trusting another human being with your life, a cultural dance between danger and delicacy. What makes this even stranger is the origin of the toxin. Pufferfish aren't naturally poisonous. They absorb tetrodotoxin from tiny sea creatures and bacteria in their environment, which means farm-raised pufferfish, raised away from those creatures, don't have any toxin at all. They are completely safe, totally harmless, and yet traditionalists reject them because to them the danger is part of the experience. The idea that you're eating something that has taken lives for centuries, but today only a master can safely serve, that's what makes fugu a cultural art. Even the sashimi style matters. The thinner the slices, the more control the chef displays. A perfect fugu plate is almost transparent, so thin the blue and white patterns of the dish shine through like stained glass. It's art. It's heritage, it's danger, all in one plate. And every year, people still go back for more, even after hearing the stories, even after seeing the warnings. Why? Because fugu isn't just food, it's a test, a ritual, a moment where trust and fear sit side by side, and you choose to take the bite anyway. Some foods shock you because of their taste, some shock you because of their smell, but this one shocks you because people still argue about whether it ever should have existed at all. Monkey brains, a dish wrapped in secrecy, drenched in controversy, and whispered about in travel journals, old documentaries, and tabloids. A dish so polarizing that half the world thinks it's a myth, and the other half thinks it's one of the darkest chapters in culinary history. And yet, behind the legends and sensational stories, behind the videos meant to scare you, behind every rumor you've ever heard, lies a scientific reality far more terrifying than any film or folklore. Because whether the practice was rare, exaggerated, or sensationalized, the risk was always real. The truth behind the legends. During the 20th century, stories began surfacing from early Western travelers in Southeast Asia, Chinese royal banquets from centuries past, secret elite dining clubs, and unregulated wildlife markets in parts of Asia and Africa. Some reports were confirmed, others were dramatized by the media, some were pure myth. But the heart of the danger didn't depend on whether the stories were common. It depended on the biology of what was being eaten, because the human body has one golden rule: never eat the brain of another mammal, especially one genetically close to you. The true threat inside monkey brains is something the human eye can't see, something the nose can't smell, something heat can't destroy. They're called prions, misfolded proteins so dangerous that even scientists compare them to biological nightmares. Unlike bacteria, they don't die in hot oil. Unlike viruses, they can't be inactivated by cooking. Unlike toxins, they don't break down over time. Prions do something far more sinister. They enter the human brain and slowly force your own proteins to turn against you. Once inside, they twist healthy brain proteins into more prions, like a chain reaction. Your brain becomes a battlefield, and the enemy is made from your own tissue. Tiny holes begin to form in the brain. Nerve pathways break down. Thoughts, memories, motor control, everything begins to collapse. And here's the worst part. Symptoms can stay hidden for 5, 10, even 20 years. You could eat the dish as a dare, as a curiosity, as a cultural experience, and only years later begin to tremble, forget, hallucinate, or lose control of your muscles. By then, it's too late. Eating primate brain tissue has been associated with the same family of diseases as Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, CJD Kuru, the disease that wiped out tribes in Papua New Guinea, fatal familial insomnia, mad cow-type disorders. Once a prion disease starts, there are no cures, no treatments, no survivors. Doctors cannot stop it. Medicines cannot slow it. Technology cannot reverse it. It is a one-way road. Most food poisoning fears disappear with proper cooking. Prions ignore that rule. They survive boiling. They survive roasting. They survive frying. They survive extreme temperatures. They are almost indestructible. Scientists have tried using chemicals, radiation, and industrial sterilization, and prions still resist. So even if someone served the dish, cooked, cleaned, processed, and seasoned, the risk remained untouched. While parts of modern Asia firmly reject the notion that monkey brains were ever mainstream, historical records tell a more complicated story. There are Chinese Qing dynasty banquet descriptions, Southeast Asian folklore referencing monkey brain rituals, colonial-era journals mentioning the dish among elites, documented wildlife trade involving primates for consumption in rural regions. Today, almost all countries have made the practice illegal, not only for ethical and conservation reasons, but because primates are genetically close to humans, which increases disease risk dramatically. Consuming them puts wildlife at risk, and it puts humans at risk, especially in areas where illegal markets operate behind closed doors. Regulation is non-existent and hygiene is questionable. Even today, black market bushmeat trade exists in parts of Africa, Southeast Asia, and remote jungle regions worldwide. Primates, especially endangered ones, are hunted for meat, not necessarily for the brain, but the risk remains. These animals can carry viruses, parasites, bacteria, and prions, diseases that could jump to humans, mutate, spread, and become global outbreaks. Scientists fear that consuming exotic wildlife like primates could spark the next pandemic. Monkey brains have now become a forbidden dish, a symbol of ethical and health violations, a moral debate, a staple of urban legends, and a recurring trope in horror movies and documentaries. But the real horror is not the imagery. It's the silent biological danger that follows the dish wherever it appears, whether in truth or legend. Not every story about monkey brains is real, but the risks absolutely are. And the science is enough to put monkey brains at the very top of the world's most dangerous foods list. Not because of how they taste, but because of what they can do to your brain. In Jamaica, food doesn't just sit on a plate. It tells stories. It carries memories. It defines identity. And no food represents that identity more proudly than ackee, a fruit bright as fire, smooth as lacquered stone, and so woven into Jamaican culture that it became their national dish. But here's the twist. This national treasure is also a national threat. This fruit has killed. This fruit has caused mass poisonings. This fruit has sent entire households, entire villages into sudden medical collapse. Not because people didn't wash it, not because they cooked it wrong, but simply because they ate it before the fruit decided it was time. Yes, this is the only fruit in the world that humans can safely eat only after it opens itself. Ackee grows on tall green trees with glossy leaves and fruits shaped like giant red almonds. When it's unripe, the shell is sealed tight and loaded with poison. Locals call it sleeping ackee, and sleeping ackee is deadly. Inside are 3 large, black, polished seeds, each sitting on a bed of creamy yellow flesh. But until the fruit forcefully bursts open on its own, that creamy flesh is not food. It's a biochemical trap. When ripe, the pod splits open naturally like a blooming flower, exposing the edible portion. No knife should ever be used. No human should ever force it open. The moment ackee opens is the moment it speaks. Now you may eat. This is not superstition. This is chemistry. Unripe ackee contains hypoglycin A and hypoglycin B, two of the most powerful, naturally occurring toxins in fruit. They attack the body in silence, cutting off the ability to break down sugars. Once this happens, blood sugar drops so rapidly that the brain starts shutting down. This is known as Jamaican vomiting sickness. Symptoms begin mildly: sweating, stomach cramps, dizziness, sudden fatigue. But within hours, things get violent: uncontrollable vomiting seizures, liver damage, coma, and in the worst cases, death. What makes it terrifying is that people often feel fine right until the moment hypoglycin overwhelms the system. Some victims collapse minutes after eating. Others collapse hours later in the middle of sleep. No antidote exists. Doctors can only support the patient and hope the body survives the toxin's assault. The earliest medical records of ackee poisoning date back to the 1800s, when British colonial physicians noticed an unusual pattern happening in Jamaican villages. Healthy children went to sleep after dinner and never woke up. Post-mortem exams revealed severe liver damage, but no one knew the cause. It wasn't until decades later that doctors connected the deaths to unripe ackee harvested during famine seasons. During food shortages, people could not afford to wait for fruit to fall open naturally. They pried pods open early, hoping to feed their families. It cost lives. In rural Jamaica, ackee trees are everywhere: in backyards, behind villages, near riverbanks. But in times of drought or economic hardship, many turn to unripe fruit to survive. During the worst seasons, entire communities suffered poisoning simultaneously. Local newspapers from the 1940s describe heartbreaking stories. A mother preparing breakfast with unripe ackee unknowingly poisoned all 5 of her children. A farmer, too hungry to wait, ate just a handful of unripe flesh and collapsed within hours. Doctors back then didn't have blood glucose tests, so they were helpless. Survival depended on luck. Ackee was so dangerous that the U.S. banned all imports in the early 20th century. Why? Because in the 1920s and 1930s, Jamaican immigrants brought canned ackee to the U.S. A few Americans who didn't understand how to handle it became seriously ill. Hypoglycin poisoning scared U.S. officials so much that in 1956, ackee was officially declared a hazardous food. For decades, the fruit was illegal. Only after strict safety regulations were created did the FDA allow imports again, requiring lab testing for toxin levels in every single shipment. It remains one of the most heavily regulated fruits in the world. Hypoglycin blocks an enzyme called acyl-CoA dehydrogenase, which is essential for converting fats into glucose. This means the body cannot create energy. So during fasting, like sleeping overnight, victims suddenly run out of fuel. This is why many deaths happen early in the morning. Their last meal was unripe ackee. Their blood sugar plummeted during sleep. Their body shut down mid-dream. Despite its danger, ackee is not just food. It's a symbol. In Jamaica, it represents independence. It represents identity. It represents home. Every Jamaican grandmother knows how to clean ackee, how to read the fruit, how to respect it. Locals treat it like a living thing, something you must wait for, something you must understand. Tourists don't always know this. There are stories of travelers taking souvenir fruits from trees and trying to cook them in hotel kitchens. Many end up in emergency rooms. Ackee demands knowledge. It demands patience. It demands respect. In commercial production, ackee undergoes a strict process. Fruits must fall open naturally on the tree. Only the yellow areoles are removed. Seeds and pink membrane are discarded immediately. The flesh is boiled multiple times to remove remaining hypoglycin. Processed fruit is tested chemically before being canned for export. This system saved countless lives, but in rural areas without testing equipment, people still rely on instinct, and mistakes still happen. In the 1950s, researchers at the University of the West Indies isolated the toxin and proved how it worked. Their findings changed food safety laws worldwide. Hypoglycin turned out to be so potent that it is now used in laboratory research to study metabolic disorders. Jamaica, ironically, became a global leader in food toxicology research because of a fruit that nearly killed so many of its children. Ackee is a multi-million-dollar export industry, but producers must follow rules stricter than those for dairy, seafood, or meat. Shipments have been rejected at U.S. ports for the slightest trace of hypoglycin. Some exporters even go bankrupt because an entire container was refused. The fruit is profitable, but only when handled with absolute precision. Despite strict regulations, some try to smuggle fresh ackee into countries illegally. Frozen ackee has appeared in suitcases in cargo shipments, even hidden inside other foods authorities confiscated immediately. Why? Because fresh ackee bypasses safety testing, and that can lead to poisoning outbreaks. Even Jamaicans living abroad warn each other never accept unrefrigerated ackee from anyone. Ever ackee appears in travel documentaries, food challenge shows, Caribbean travel vlogs, even horror stories on Reddit. It has a reputation worldwide as the fruit that might kill you. Yet millions of Jamaicans eat it weekly without fear because they respect the rules. Medical journals record dozens of survivors. Some describe feeling fine after eating unripe ackee, then suddenly collapsing in front of their families. Others describe hallucinations, dizziness, or suddenly losing the ability to stand. One man recalled waking up in a hospital bed, unable to remember the past 12 hours. Another described vomiting until he passed out. Stories differ, but they all share one detail: they didn't know the fruit wasn't ready. Because when ackee is ripe, when it opens naturally, when it's cooked properly, it transforms into one of the richest, creamiest, most satisfying foods in the Caribbean. Its flavor is savory, buttery, almost like scrambled eggs mixed with avocado. No other fruit tastes like it, so Jamaicans continue to eat it, not because they ignore the danger, but because they have mastered the fruit. To them, ackee isn't a hazard, it's a national treasure. Ackee represents the perfect paradox, a beloved national symbol wrapped in the biology of a natural weapon. It is beautiful and deadly, welcoming and unforgiving, a food and a warning. And as long as people respect its rules, it remains one of the Caribbean's greatest gifts. But for those who don't, it becomes one of the most dangerous foods on Earth. On the island of Sardinia, traditions are sacred, passed down like heirlooms, protected like treasure, and practiced with pride. But one Sardinian tradition has shocked tourists, defied science, and horrified food authorities across Europe. A cheese that is alive, a cheese that moves, a cheese that, in the wrong conditions, can kill the person eating it. Its name is casu marzu, and on paper it shouldn't exist. But somehow, it does. Casu marzu translates to one thing: rotten cheese. But to Sardinian locals, that translation misses the point entirely. To them, casu marzu isn't decay, it's transformation. It starts with pecorino, a classic sheep's milk cheese. Except here, the cheese is deliberately left out in the open, where it attracts a very specific insect, the Piophila casse, the cheese fly. The fly lays eggs inside the cheese. Those eggs hatch into translucent, white, wriggling larvae, and the larvae begin to eat. What they do to the cheese is something no machine or chef can replicate. Their digestive enzymes break down the fats in the cheese, turning a hard wheel into a creamy, almost liquid paste. Locals describe the texture as soft butter mixed with fire. Tourists describe it as a crime scene on a plate. Casu marzu tastes sharp, pungent, and intensely fiery, almost spicy, despite containing no spice. It smells like ammonia, strong vinegar, fermented meat, and something faintly alive. Many people cry the first time they smell it, not from emotion, from fumes. But to Sardinians, that smell is the scent of heritage, of celebration, of weddings, of family gatherings. They eat it with flatbread, local wine, roasted meats, and always, always, it is served with the live maggots still inside. Why? Because to traditionalists, if the maggots aren't moving, the cheese is dead and not safe to eat. Eating casu marzu is not like eating regular cheese. The risk comes from the larvae themselves. These tiny worms, barely longer than a grain of rice, can survive inside the human digestive system. And if they do, they can burrow into the intestines, causing a condition called enteric meiosis, a rare but potentially deadly parasitic infection. Symptoms include bleeding, severe severe pain, nausea, bacterial infection, intestinal damage. There have been emergency cases linked to improperly prepared casu marzu. European health authorities have tried to ban it multiple times, but banning it only made it more desirable. Since the EU has prohibited casu marzu for sale, it now exists almost entirely in an underground economy. Locals trade it quietly. Some produce it illegally at home. Some store it in caves. Some smuggle it to tourists who specifically seek the food that the government doesn't want you to taste. In Sardinia, people joke, if you want the real cheese, ask for the cheese without a price. The more dangerous it sounds, the more people want to try it. Human nature is strange that way. To Sardinians, banning casu marzu is like banning identity. For them, this isn't just a cheese. It's a centuries-old symbol of survival and self-reliance. Historically, Sardinian shepherds made food out of whatever nature gave them. If flies laid eggs in their cheese, they didn't waste it. They reinvented it. Today, restaurants aren't allowed to serve it. Shops can't sell it. And yet, every year during festivals, locals bring out hidden jars of casu marzu with pride. It's a rebellious food. It shouldn't exist, but stubbornly does. There is a proper way to eat casu marzu. Slice the cheese carefully. Look for signs the larvae are alive. Cover your hand above the cheese. The maggots can jump 6 inches high. Spread it on bread. Eat slowly, allowing every intense flavor to hit your tongue. Some people close their eyes. Some laugh out of nervousness. Some scream when a maggot jumps. Many tourists throw up. Locals, they watch and laugh. Maggots are normally harmless, but the larvae used in casu marzu are different. In rare cases, they can survive stomach acid and attach themselves to the intestinal lining. This is what medical journals describe internal bleeding, infected lesions, abdominal swelling, worm migration, and in severe cases, life-threatening complications, doctors must sometimes remove them surgically. This is why the EU banned casu marzu, but to Sardinians, the risk is tiny compared to the pleasure and the cultural pride of eating it. Every year, thousands of adventurous food lovers travel to Sardinia for the sole purpose of finding and tasting casu marzu. They talk about it the way people speak about skydiving. It was terrifying. It was disgusting. It was unforgettable. Some describe it like a dare between you and nature. Casu marzu has been featured in National Geographic Discovery Channel. Anthony Bourdain's travel shows Gordon Ramsay's episodes, BuzzFeed food challenges, countless viral YouTube videos. Each time, the reaction is the same. Shock, fear, curiosity, respect. Casu marzu doesn't just feed the body, it feeds the internet. Casu marzu represents the ultimate paradox, a celebrated food created by decay, perfected by insects, and outlawed by science. It is dangerous, it is ancient, it is alive, and it stands as proof that some of humanity's most beloved traditions come from the strangest, most uncomfortable places. In most restaurants, the food stops moving long before it reaches your plate. But in South Korea, there is one dish that refuses to die quietly. A dish that continues to twist, curl, and cling even after it has been chopped into pieces. A dish that, quite literally, can fight for its life inside your throat. This is sanakji, the Korean delicacy of freshly cut, still moving octopus tentacles. And behind the buzz, behind the tourist videos, behind the viral social media clips, lies one of the most dangerous foods in the world. To Koreans, sanakji isn't a stunt. It isn't fear factor food. It isn't something eaten just for shock value. It is a symbol of freshness, ocean purity, and centuries-old fishing tradition. The preparation is simple, almost deceptively simple. A live baby octopus is selected from the tank. A skilled chef quickly removes the tentacles and cuts them into bite-sized pieces. But the nerves inside each tentacle remain active for minutes. They react to salt, sesame oil, and air. So the pieces continue to move, curling and writhing across the plate as if the creature were still alive. To locals, it's a sign. The dish is fresh, clean, and worthy of a celebration. To outsiders, it looks like something from science fiction. Unlike fugu or poisonous mushrooms, cyanide Sanakji contains no toxin. The danger is mechanical. Each tentacle piece contains hundreds of tiny suction cups, and even after separation, they remain powerful. If someone swallows too quickly or doesn't chew thoroughly, a suction cup can clamp onto the throat, the esophagus, or even the airway, and once it latches, it's not letting go. This is why doctors in South Korea have issued repeated warnings: chew at least 30 times before swallowing. But as every video shows, tourists often don't listen. Hospitals in Seoul and Busan report several Sanakji-related emergencies every year. Most are choking cases. Some require emergency surgery. A few have ended tragically. The victims are usually tourists unfamiliar with the tradition, people eating too fast, or diners influenced by alcohol. Doctors warn that even a small tentacle can block the airway more effectively than a piece of steak, because it doesn't just stick, it clings, fighting against being removed. This is why Sanakji, while beloved, remains one of Korea's most dangerous dishes. People who try Sanakji say the same thing. It's not the taste, it's the fight. Sanakji has a chewy, rubbery texture, bursts of saltiness, the aroma of sesame oil, and a strange electric feel as the tentacles twitch on the tongue. Koreans pair it with soju, sesame dipping sauce, sliced radish, and kimchi. It's eaten during celebrations, after fishing trips, and on nights out with friends. To them, the thrill isn't danger, it's connection to the sea. Korea's fishing culture is shaped by survival. For generations, coastal villagers relied on the ocean as the backbone of life. Fresh seafood, eaten raw or barely cooked, was a way to honor the ocean's gifts. Sanakji became a symbol of purity. No processing, no machines, just the ocean, the fishermen, and the plate. This philosophy is why the dish persists today, despite international headlines calling it dangerous or extreme. To Koreans, Sanakji isn't extreme. It's authentic. Restaurants that serve Sanakji often brief first-timers with strict instructions. Rule 1. Chew thoroughly until the tentacle stops moving. Rule 2. Don't talk while chewing. A suction cup can slip into the throat. Rule 3. Avoid alcohol until after eating. Alcohol slows reflexes and increases choking risk. Rule 4. Cut into smaller pieces. Chefs will adjust for foreigners. Rule 5. Eat slowly. This is not a food you swallow quickly. Locals follow these rules instinctively. Tourists often do not. And that's where the danger lies. People who try Sanakji say the same thing. It's not the taste, it's the fight. Sanakji has a chewy, rubbery texture, bursts of saltiness, the aroma of sesame oil, and a strange electric feel as the tentacles twitch on the tongue. Koreans pair it with soju, sesame dipping sauce, sliced radish, and kimchi. It's eaten during celebrations, after fishing trips, and on nights out with friends. To them, the thrill isn't danger, it's connection to the sea. Korea's fishing culture is shaped by survival. For generations, coastal villagers relied on the ocean as the backbone of life. Fresh seafood, eaten raw or barely cooked, was a way to honor the ocean's gifts. Sanakji became a symbol of purity. No processing, no machines, just the ocean, the fishermen, and the plate. This philosophy is why the dish persists today, despite international headlines calling it dangerous or extreme. To Koreans, Sanakji isn't extreme. It's authentic. Restaurants that serve Sanakji often brief first-timers with strict instructions. Rule 1. Chew thoroughly until the tentacle stops moving. Rule 2. Don't talk while chewing. A suction cup can slip into the throat. Rule 3. Avoid alcohol until after eating. Alcohol slows reflexes and increases choking risk. Rule 4. Cut into smaller pieces. Chefs will adjust for foreigners. Rule 5. Eat slowly. This is not a food you swallow quickly. Locals follow these rules instinctively. Tourists often do not. And that's where the danger lies. They sit quietly in grocery store aisles, golden, curved, perfectly salted, perfectly harmless. Or so it seems. Cashews are one of the world's favorite snacks. But what most people don't know is this. Cashews are poisonous in their natural state. So dangerous that handling them raw can burn your skin, and eating them raw can put put you in the hospital. This is the story of a nut that had to be tamed before it could become food. A story of chemistry, ancient farming techniques, and an invisible toxin strong enough to scar the hands of the people who harvest it. This is the truth behind cashews, one of the world's most dangerous foods before processing. Cashews don't grow inside a shell the way almonds or walnuts do. They grow outside a fruit called a cashew apple. At the bottom of the apple hangs a single kidney-shaped shell. Inside that shell is the cashew seed we eat. But that shell is a trap, a chemical barrier designed by nature to protect the nut from predators, insects, and curious humans. The shell contains a toxic resin called urushiol. If that name sounds familiar, it should. It's the exact same chemical found in poison ivy, poison oak, poison sumac, meaning a raw cashew isn't just unsafe. It's basically nature's hidden poison wrapped around a delicious snack. Urushiol doesn't need to be eaten to hurt you. Just touching it is enough. Workers in cashew farms often develop painful blisters, chemical burns, skin rashes, swelling, long-term sensitivity. Some farmers must wear rubber gloves, arm guards, goggles, and face protection just to open the shell safely. Because if urushiol splashes onto skin, it can cause the same reaction as rubbing poison ivy directly onto your face. This is why raw cashews in stores aren't truly raw. They're steamed or roasted at high temperatures to break down the toxin. If they weren't, eating even a small handful could cause severe stomach pain, vomiting, throat irritation, mouth burns, and in extreme cases, poisoning. For a nut that looks harmless, cashews hide a surprisingly lethal side, and the people who risk their health to feed the world. Cashews are mainly produced in India, Vietnam, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Mozambique. Every year, global demand climbs higher, and so does the pressure on workers. But the process hasn't changed much in decades. Here's how it works. Harvesters collect cashew apples. The apples are juicy and edible, but the nut below is the real prize. Workers remove the nut from the apple. This is safe. The toxin is still sealed inside. Nuts are roasted in huge drums. The high heat begins breaking down urushiol, but releases toxic fumes. Workers often breathe this smoke. Some develop respiratory problems. The shells are cracked open by hand. This is the most dangerous part. Even after roasting, pockets of urushiol remain trapped. When the shell splits, the toxin can spray out. Videos from factories show workers with bandaged hands, chemical burns, blackened fingertips, all from trying to deliver the snack the world loves. Cashews come with a hidden human cost few consumers ever think about. When you buy a bag of raw cashews, you're not actually buying true raw nuts. If they were truly raw, they wouldn't be legally allowed in stores in the US, Canada, Europe, and India. The term raw simply means not roasted for flavor, no added spices, minimally processed after steaming. But the steaming step is absolutely mandatory to neutralize the toxin. True raw cashews are so dangerous they can only be handled in controlled environments. Despite their risks, cashews are incredibly popular. Why? Because they're buttery, creamy, versatile, rich in healthy fats, perfect for desserts, curries, and snacks. They're used in vegan cheese, Indian sweets, Thai curries, pastries, nut butters, chocolate bars, salads. People consume millions of tons every year, completely unaware that their favorite nut begins its journey as a toxic seed wrapped in poison. Urushiol wasn't made to kill humans. It evolved to protect the plant. This toxin deters insects, prevents animals from eating the seed, protects the nut from fungi, seals out bacteria, and even discourages rival plants from growing nearby. It is a masterclass in biological self-defense. Nature saw fit to wrap one of its tastiest creations in one of its most painful chemicals. For millions of years, that system worked perfectly. Only humans figured out how to crack the code. Literally. People often ask, should I be worried about eating cashews? The answer is no, as long as they come from a reliable supplier. Store-bought cashews, roasted or raw, are safe, but their safety comes from a long, dangerous, labor-intensive process that happens before they're packaged. A process designed to protect you from a toxin hidden inside the shell. A process that has injured thousands of workers over the years. A process that must be followed correctly for every single nut, or the consequences consequences could be serious. Behind every smooth, golden cashew is a story of farmers working with burning hands, a story of workers breathing toxic fumes, a story of factories where safety gear is a luxury, a story of a nut that must be purified before anyone can enjoy it. So the next time you eat a cashew, remember, before it became a snack, it was one of the deadliest foods in the plant kingdom, and the only reason it's safe today is because someone else risked the danger for you. If danger had a smell, it would smell exactly like this: sharp, chemical, unmistakably toxic, a sting of ammonia that hits before the taste ever does. This is hakkarl, Iceland's most infamous dish, a food so extreme that even world-renowned chefs have spit it out on camera, a food born out of survival and created from a creature that is deadly long before it ever reaches a plate. But the real story starts deep in the frigid Arctic waters with a shark that nature never intended humans to eat. The Greenland shark is one of the oldest living vertebrates on Earth. Scientists estimate some of them are 400 years old, meaning a shark swimming in Iceland today could have been alive when the Taj Mahal was being built, Shakespeare was writing plays, the Mughal Empire ruled India, the Mayflower sailed. But age isn't its only mystery. The Greenland shark swims slowly, silently, and its flesh is naturally poisonous. Unlike other sharks, its body is filled with compounds like urea trimethylamine oxide. These chemicals allow it to survive extremely cold, deep waters. But for humans, they cause severe nausea, hallucinations, drunkenness-like symptoms, loss of motor control, kidney stress, and in high concentrations, poisoning. If you ate this shark fresh, your body would start shutting down within minutes. So why would anyone turn such a creature into food? The answer: desperation and survival. Centuries ago, Iceland was not the tourist paradise it is today. It was one of the harshest places humans tried to settle. Freezing winters, almost no vegetation, limited farmland, long months without fresh food, volcanic landscapes that produced more ash than crops. For early Icelanders, starvation was a constant threat. So when giant Greenland sharks washed ashore, the Vikings faced a choice: starve or find a way to turn poison into protein. And through trial, error, and sheer necessity, they invented a method unlike anything else in the world: the art of making poisoned meat safe. The traditional method of preparing hakkarl is almost cinematic. Step 1. Burying the shark first. The shark is cleaned and placed in a shallow pit in the gravel. Stones are stacked on top, pressing the flesh down. For 6 to 12 weeks, the shark ferments underground. During this time, toxins break down, urea converts, fluids drain out, ammonia rises, the meat slowly becomes edible. The ground acts like a natural detox chamber. Step 2. Hanging the meat. After fermentation, workers dig it up and cut it into wide strips. These pieces are hung in open-air sheds for 4 to 5 months. Wind, cold air, and winter sunlight continue the process, drying, aging, curing chemical breakdown. A brown crust forms on the outside, the part that must be cut off before serving. What remains is a cube of white, rubbery meat that smells like a mix of bleach, ammonia, strong fish chemicals, and ocean decay. This is hakkarl, a food created not for pleasure but for survival. Anthony Bourdain once said, "Hakkarl was the single worst thing I've ever put in my mouth." Gordon Ramsay spat it out immediately. Even locals admit it's an acquired taste, and you have to grow up with it. The smell hits first, a burning chemical cloud that fills your nostrils. Then comes the flavor: sharp ammonia, sour fermented meat, a lingering aftertaste that clings to your throat. It's not meant to be eaten like a meal. It's taken in tiny cubes, often served with a shot of Icelandic schnapps called brennivin, not to enhance the flavor, but to help the eater survive it. Despite its intensity, hakkarl isn't just a food. It's a symbol of Icelandic endurance. It represents surviving harsh winters, resourcefulness in a land with limited resources, respect for tradition, ancestral ingenuity. During the annual Thorablot festival, Icelanders celebrate old Viking dishes: sheep's head whale, blubber, ram testicles, blood pudding, and of course, hakkarl. To them, them, Hakal is a story of their people's resilience, a reminder that their ancestors didn't just endure the land, they adapted to it in remarkable ways. Why the shark was toxic in the first place. The Greenland shark's toxicity isn't accidental. Its blood contains high concentrations of TMAO, which prevents its cells from freezing at the depths it inhabits. This compound also acts as anti-freeze pressure, stabilizer enzyme protector. But when humans ingest it, our body converts TMAO into trimethylamine, same molecule that gives rotten fish its smell. Combine that with massive amounts of urea, and you get a chemical cocktail that would knock out almost any predator. This is why the shark never evolved natural enemies. Its flesh is basically a biological weapon. Only fermentation makes it edible. Today, producing hakal is safer and more controlled. Modern farms use elevated drying huts, monitor fermentation periods, test for toxin levels, pasteurize, or freeze portions for export. But the dish remains controversial. Animal rights groups criticize the hunting of Greenland sharks, which grow slowly and are vulnerable to overfishing. Icelandic producers argue most hakal is made from sharks that die accidentally in fishing nets. It's wasteful not to use them. It preserves a national tradition. This debate continues, but hakal remains a rare specialty rather than an everyday food. Hakal has become a global phenomenon, not because of its flavor, but because of its reputation. It appears on travel shows, food challenges, extreme eating videos, culinary documentaries, adventure tourism packages. People visit Iceland just to dare themselves to try it. In a world full of safe, sanitized foods, hakal offers something different, a connection to ancient survival, a test of courage, a piece of Viking history served one cube at a time. Hakal is more than a dish. It's a chemistry experiment, a survival strategy, a cultural relic, a deadly creature transformed through human ingenuity and patience into something edible and unforgettable. Whether you see it as a delicacy or a dare depends entirely on your courage. But one thing is undeniable. Hakal earns its place among the most dangerous and fascinating foods in the world. In the quiet corners of villages across Africa, Brazil, and Southeast Asia, you'll see the same scene repeated every day. A woman peeling long, earthy roots, children helping to carry baskets, smoke drifting from cooking fires, and a pile of cassava, a crop so ordinary that most of the world never realizes how dangerous it really is. Cassava feeds over 500 million people, making it one of the most important survival crops on Earth. But hidden inside this humble root is a chemical trap so deadly that mishandling it can release pure cyanide. This isn't an exaggeration. Cassava contains compounds that, if not treated correctly, can shut down human organs in hours. This is the story of the food that can save lives and take them, all depending on how you prepare it. Inside cassava lies a naturally occurring compound called linamarin. When the plant cells are broken by chewing, grinding, or cutting, linamarin mixes with enzymes. The result is hydrogen cyanide, the same toxin historically used in chemical warfare, poison capsules, lethal doses in seconds. Humans cannot detect it by taste or smell. It slips through the food like a ghost. So why grow such a dangerous plant? Because in many parts of the world, cassava is the only thing that will grow at all. Cassava thrives where almost nothing else can, in drought, in poor soil, in extreme heat, in areas with little rainfall, in regions facing food insecurity. Where wheat fails, cassava survives. Where rice dries out, cassava grows deeper roots. Where corn collapses, cassava keeps producing. This resilience is why millions rely on it. Villagers in rural Nigeria, families in Congo communities in Brazil, farmers in Indonesia and Laos. It is a crop of last resort, a dependable source of calories, a lifesaver. But this gift comes with a deadly warning: cassava must be handled exactly right. Any mistake and poison remains inside. There are two main categories. First, sweet cassava, lower toxin levels, safe after simple Boiling, common in supermarkets. Second, bitter cassava. Extremely high toxin levels. Must be soaked, grated, fermented, boiled, dried. If eaten raw or under-processed, it can cause mass poisoning. During famines, droughts, or war, people often pick bitter cassava out of desperation because it grows faster, and that's when the danger begins. Process designed to remove poison. Villages that rely on cassava have developed multi-step, time-tested techniques to make it safe. A process designed to remove poison. Villages that rely on cassava have developed multi-step, time-tested techniques to make it safe. Each step has a purpose. Step 1. Peeling. The outer skin holds the highest concentration of toxins. Step 2. Grating or crushing. This opens the cell walls and allows cyanide to escape. Step 3. Fermenting. In baskets, pits, or pots, the grated cassava is left to ferment for days. Fermentation is crucial. Microorganisms break down linamarin and release the gas harmlessly. Step 4. Soaking water leaches out cyanide. Some communities soak cassava for 3 to 5 days. Step 5. Drying in the sun. Sunlight evaporates toxins. Step 6. Cooking. Only after all this is cassava safe to eat. Generations have learned this process not through books, but through survival, because those who didn't follow the rules never lived long enough to warn the next generation. In regions where cassava is a staple, outbreaks of cyanide poisoning have occurred during drought, war, supply shortages, economic collapse, food scarcity. When people are starving, they skip steps. They cook bitter cassava the way they cook sweet cassava. They rush fermentation, or they eat the root raw, believing hunger is more dangerous. But cyanide does not forgive. Symptoms of cassava poisoning include dizziness, vomiting, rapid breathing, confusion, paralyzed limbs, organ failure, and in severe cases, death. One of the most serious conditions is konzo, a neurological disease linked directly to poorly processed cassava. It causes irreversible paralysis of the legs, difficulty walking, weakness, nerve damage. Entire regions in rural Congo have reported clusters of konzo outbreaks during drought years. The cause is always the same: cassava prepared in desperation instead of patience. In many households, children help collect and prepare cassava. They wash, peel, grind, cook, without fully understanding the danger. Small bodies absorb cyanide faster. Even small doses can cause long-term neurological harm. This is why NGOs and health organizations run education programs teaching families safe preparation techniques. Because for many people, cassava is not optional. It is survival. Cassava is one of the few foods in the world that can both nourish and harm, depending entirely on human knowledge. Its identity is split: life-saving food during famine, dangerous toxin when mishandled, economic lifeline for farmers, silent threat in poor communities. This paradox is what makes cassava one of the most important and most misunderstood foods on earth. Cassava is used for flour, tapioca, starch, alcohol, animal feed, biofuel, snack foods, soups, and stews. Countries like Nigeria, Brazil, and Thailand produce millions of tons annually. As climate change intensifies, cassava is becoming even more important. Why? Because it can survive heat waves that destroy other crops. Scientists believe cassava will become one of the dominant food sources in the 21st century. That's why researchers are developing low cyanide varieties and teaching improved processing methods. The goal is simple: keep cassava feeding the world while reducing the risk it carries. Despite its dangers, cassava remains beloved. In Brazil, it becomes pão de queijo, cheese bread, farofa tapioca pancakes. In Africa, gari fufu ugali chikwangue. In Asia, desserts, pearls, noodles. Generations have turned this risky crop into beautiful cuisine. The danger doesn't stop the tradition, it deepens it. Because the story of cassava is the story of human resilience, taking something dangerous and turning it into life. A food that demands respect. Cassava is not evil. It is not malicious. It is simply powerful. A root that can save you or poison you. A crop that grows where others die. A plant that has kept millions alive in humanity's humanity's harshest moments. It all comes down to knowledge. Cassava rewards those who handle it properly and punishes those who underestimate it. In the end, it is a reminder that food, like nature, can be both friend and foe. And sometimes the line between the two is razor thin. Cassava is used for flour, tapioca, starch, alcohol, animal feed, biofuel, snack foods, soups, and stews. Countries like Nigeria, Brazil, and Thailand produce millions of tons annually. As climate change intensifies, cassava is becoming even more important. Why? Because it can survive heat waves that destroy other crops. Scientists believe cassava will become one of the dominant food sources in the 21st century. That's why researchers are developing low cyanide varieties and teaching improved processing methods. The goal is simple: keep cassava feeding the world while reducing the risk it carries. Despite its dangers, cassava remains beloved. In Brazil, it becomes pão de queijo, cheese bread, farofa tapioca pancakes. In Africa, gari fufu ugali chikwangue. In Asia, desserts, pearls, noodles. Generations have turned this risky crop into beautiful cuisine. The danger doesn't stop the tradition, it deepens it. Because the story of cassava is the story of human resilience, taking something dangerous and turning it into life. A food that demands respect. Cassava is not evil. It is not malicious. It is simply powerful. A root that can save you or poison you. A crop that grows where others die. A plant that has kept millions alive in humanity's harshest moments. It all comes down to knowledge. Cassava rewards those who handle it properly and punishes those who underestimate it. In the end, it is a reminder that food, like nature, can be both friend and foe. And sometimes the line between the two is razor thin. The harmless fruit with a deadly secret. We grow up hearing it from parents, teachers, and cartoons. Don't swallow apple seeds. It sounds like an old myth, a harmless warning thrown around without explanation, until you learn the science behind it. Because inside the smooth, glossy seeds of apples, cherries, apricots, peaches, and plums lies one of nature's strangest chemical traps, a compound capable of turning into hydrogen cyanide inside the human body. Yes, cyanide, the same chemical used in poisonings throughout history, the same substance that can stop human metabolism with terrifying speed. But how does something so deadly hide inside fruits we eat every day? And why doesn't it kill us constantly? The answer is both reassuring and unsettling. Let's open it up. Apple and cherry seeds contain a compound called amygdalin. Amygdalin isn't dangerous by itself, but when it encounters human digestive enzymes, specifically beta-glucosidase, it breaks down into benzaldehyde glucose and hydrogen cyanide. Hydrogen cyanide is the real threat. It blocks the body's ability to absorb oxygen at the cellular level. In high doses, it causes dizziness, rapid breathing, vomiting, seizures, coma, and respiratory collapse. So yes, fruit seeds contain the building blocks of a deadly poison. But then the question becomes, if seeds are so toxic, why aren't we dying from fruit salads? The answer lies in dose, digestion, and design. The seed's hard outer shell is nature's protective armor. It's designed to pass through the digestive system intact so animals can disperse seeds through their droppings. If swallowed whole, the shell doesn't break open and the amygdalin stays locked inside. That's why swallowing 2 or 3 apple seeds won't do anything. The danger begins when the seeds are crushed, chewed, ground, blended, or brewed into teas. That's when the amygdalin escapes and the cyanide reaction begins. This is why cherry pits cracked open by teeth or crushed inside smoothies pose a far greater risk than simply swallowing them. Doctors have documented cases worldwide where people fell ill after consuming crushed fruit pits. In 2017, a British man was hospitalized after eating apricot kernels sold as natural health supplements. He consumed enough amygdalin to raise cyanide levels to nearly lethal. In another case, a woman in Australia became violently ill after brewing peach pit tea because she believed it improved digestion. It didn't. Her body absorbed enough cyanide to trigger vomiting and confusion before doctors intervened. These aren't isolated incidents. Health agencies in the US, UK, and Europe regularly issue warnings against grinding or consuming stone fruit pits for homemade remedies, because the moment you crush the seed, you release the danger. Apple seeds seeds contain small amounts of amygdalin, require dozens of crushed seeds for toxicity. Cherry pits, apricot kernels, peach stones contain much higher levels. Just a few crushed pits can cause symptoms. A single cherry pit may not kill you, but crushing a handful creates enough hydrogen cyanide to cause harm. This is why children, who might chew seeds without knowing, are more vulnerable. Plants evolve defenses to protect their seeds from predators. The fruit is the reward for animals to eat. The seed, however, is the future plant. It must survive. By hiding a poisonous chemical inside the seed, the plant discourages animals from chewing or destroying the core. It's a built-in survival mechanism. Humans, with our blenders and grinders, accidentally bypass that natural safety system. The internet is filled with dangerous trends. Apricot kernels advertised as natural cancer medicine, apple seed tea recipes, cherry pit detox drinks, stone fruit smoothies blended whole. These practices can and have resulted in poisoning. The US FDA, European Food Safety Authority, and multiple health institutions continue to warn against consuming crushed pits, not because the fruit is dangerous, but because misinformation is. In every culture, in every country, across every ocean and every forest, food is supposed to nourish us, feed us, bring us together. But as we've seen today, the world's menu hides shadows, plants that defend themselves with poison, animals whose toxins survive heat and fire, fruits with dangerous secrets buried at their core, and traditional dishes that walk the razor's edge between delicacy and disaster. Some foods became dangerous by nature. Some became dangerous through evolution. Others became dangerous because we ignored the warnings written into their biology. Yet people still seek them out for tradition, for thrill, for curiosity, or simply because they don't know what hides beneath the surface. If this documentary has taught us anything, it's this: the most ordinary-looking ingredient can be the most lethal, and the most exotic dish may carry a price far greater than its flavor. So the next time you sit at a dining table, street stall, or kitchen counter, take a moment, look twice, ask questions, because the difference between a delicious meal and a dangerous one is sometimes just a single bite. If you enjoyed this journey into the world's most lethal foods, make sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, and share this video with someone who loves food or thinks they're brave enough to try anything. This is LUXRISH, bringing you the hidden truths, the forbidden stories, and the secrets the world forgets to warn you about. Stay curious, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.